Slow fade. Thank you so much, Money Mark, for that amazing DJ set. And thank everyone for coming out for this Sunday afternoon Vale, reveiling, unveiling, behind the veil, whatever it is. Deveil, yeah. We thought of all the possible titles, but this sort of came about because Aaron and I were working together on this project, which ironically is actually a sun project. You need the sun to make this kind of art that we're trying to make. And since we started working on it, there's been no sun in LA.
Torrential rains. Yeah.
So we haven't got very far. And then we were like, well, we were bonding over our love of, Vale and Marianne and everything that they've done to really essentially create and catalyze and curate counterculture for 5 decades plus. And we were like, it would be really great to have something here in LA. Vale hadn't been down for a while, just to really celebrate someone that has done so much for so many people in terms of introducing them to things, and kind of somehow gets hidden in plain sight and yet is so all-pervasive in his influence. So that's kind of why we're here.
That's why we're here.
Yeah, sorry. Aaron will be speaking. But then just from my perspective, I met Vale, we both met Vale at different points in our life. And, my mum had written this book on punk rock, which Vale called the first book on punk rock, 77, 78 in the UK, documenting the UK scene. And it was called Punk Rock, very creatively. But then the UK edition was called Shockwave, and it had Sue Catt on the US and John Lydon on the UK. And so my mom was hanging out with Vale in the 70s, eating a bagel, and hadn't seen him since then. And when I moved to LA, she was like, oh, you got to give Vale a call and just have a chat with him. He's wonderful. And anyone that still has a landline phone line where you can just call them and they answer, that was the beginning of my connection with him.
It's a good connection. I thought you were going to bring the book. We forgot it. Yeah. And I actually didn't meet Vale until many years later, kind of around the same time that you met him, but I first discovered research at a tiny bookstore, which some of you, if any of you guys are LA natives, it was called a Muck Books, and it was in Silver Lake. And there's a coffee shop there or something now. I don't know what's there now, but I was 14 years old, and I grew up out in the Valley, and my friend and I took the RTD bus 2 hours to go to a Muck, and I bought that industrial culture handbook, and it just blew my brain open at 14 years. I had to hide. It was hidden under my bed from my parents because it was worse than porn. It was but yeah, I really did. I was like, I can't believe that this exists. I can't believe that somebody's actually putting this out. This is the most dangerous, subversive, important stuff for us to know about the sideways nature of human nature, I guess. And so for years and years and years, just collected it and never really associated it with anyone. Vale, the publisher of it was kind of a mysterious figure. It was just these magazines. And then years later, had the chance to meet him and interview him. And then Beatie and I got together and this guy's too important to everything that's come since to not celebrate in some way and turn people on to. So that's why we're here. Yeah.
Amen.
Amen.
Cool.
Should we do our thing?
Let's do our thing. See how this goes.
Yeah. Beatie and I choreographed this.
Back at school.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Vale was born in 1944 in a Japanese internment camp in Arkansas to a family of singers and vaudeville performers. Then in 1966, he relocated to San Francisco to attend UC Berkeley, moving into a loft in North Beach, where he still lives today.
In 1977, while working at City Lights bookstore with $100 donated each from Allen Ginsberg and Lawrence Ferlinghetti, he began publication of Search and Destroy, a zine documenting the then current punk subculture.
In 1980, he began publishing Research, a tabloid format zine focusing on various counterculture and underground topics. The 1980s saw the expansion of research books from tabloid to academically modeled books.
Research focused on obscure topics such as modern primitives, which helped introduce the world to body piercing, incredibly strange music and films, chock full of chapters on unknown oral and cinematic gems, pranks, stories of practical jokes by artists and musicians, as well as books dedicated to the works of William S. Burroughs and J.G. Ballard.
For almost half a century, Vale has continued to publish and distribute research publications, as well as touring nationally, giving talks about his career and advice to young DIY artists. I'll just add that every day he goes out and tables, as he calls it, outside City Lights. So he literally is working every day.
During the pandemic, Vale began to record songs with his wife, Marianne Wallace, a few of which they will perform this evening.
Few have done more to catalyze, create, catalog, and curate the authentic underground than Vale. So we're so happy to have him and Marianne here tonight. Please, everybody, welcome Vale.
You're mine? Oh, wait. Oh, wait a minute. Well, how come I have two mics?
I don't know.
Well, give her one.
Yeah.
I need my camera. I need to take a picture of you the way I see you. Where's the camera? Well, here. Nick is...
Is this on?
Oh, sorry. Well, I'll use her camera. Okay, just bear with me for a moment. Let's see. Try and, get a, what do you call it, a panorama?
Got it?
Thank you. Sorry, everyone.
We're on no time.
We're on Vale time, yeah.
Okay.
Well,
Which means sleepy time. I had to get up at 6 to get here, and practically when I got to the airport, I was told that JetBlue just canceled the flight. Like, how can they do that? And then they offered a substitute tomorrow. Well, tomorrow would be too late. And after all the planning you did, so anyway, Marion, I have to credit Marion. In my experience, I take a lot of credit for what Marion does. Sorry, everyone. But she figured out the nightmare of getting us alternative plane tickets on a different airline so we could actually make it here almost by noon. And then Beatie basically picked us up.
Basically.
Oh, yeah, well, yes, Nick Butterworth, we thank you for the ride. Okay. So, God, I wish I could talk to every person here just 5 minutes, one-to-one. It'd be neat.
Well, we'll keep this really quick, and then you can.
We have some questions
then you
for
can Vale.
Oh, that was Mark Mothersbaugh saying, "Save it for the slumber party." Whoa, Now there's a concept that we haven't seen for a while. Maybe it needs to be reborn. I don't know. I can't say.
Okay.
Yes?
Well, we have some questions for you.
Oh, go ahead.
I mean, I don't think you need questions, but and given everyone here, is pretty familiar with your work and your story, but I feel like it's good to sort of tell it and piece it together and just look at different aspects of it. So, I mean, obviously, as someone that's kind of crossed multiple counterculture movements, and so going back to the Beats, was it the lack of cataloging of that era, of the Beat era, and so it essentially became almost like a lost generation in terms of documentation that really spurred you to catalog and document punk and then the other counterculture movements?
I mean, that's definitely partly true. Everyone forgets that the Beat movement was only about 20 people. I mean, it was really small. I know my biological father, who I did not grow up with, I used to hate him, but I've forgiven him now that he died. But he was a bona fide, how do you pronounce that? My Latin is not what it used to be. Beatnik. But my uncle was the real Beatnik because he fought in World War II, killed Germans. I hope there's no Germans here. But the Army at the end of World War II had a very generous program in which if you fought in Europe, they would pay for your lodging and education and living expense any place over the world for you to go to college, which I don't think they do that anymore. I'm not sure. But not that it would apply to any of us in this room. But my uncle took a painting class because he wanted to be a painter. You know, when you face death, I think you get down to basics like, what do I really want to do? Well, develop my talents, if I have any. And so he took a painting class at the Sorbonne with Lawrence Ferlinghetti, who actually wanted to be a painter too. And so they became, quote, friends, unquote. And they both moved to San Francisco. And my uncle was smart. He didn't really have much education, but he got into real estate. I know that he sold Ferlinghetti his Bolinas lot for $3,000. Anyway, it's obviously worth a lot more than that now, but oh well. And anyway, me, I guess if I started to get famous, it was in 1967 as a founding member of 1966, as a founding member of this hippie band called Blue Cheer that was been. Yeah, I think some of them got deaf for that. We didn't, we're so stupid then. We didn't know about earplugs. I mean, duh. And so, that I need to write my memoirs of the hippie period because I don't actually think there was any really great search and destroy style publication documenting the rise. I mean, the first 2 years of the hippie movement, when it's still kind of relatively unpolluted, or what do you call it, when the capitalists come in and thank you, co-opt it, or try to. So anyway, so I was kind of mad that there wasn't a really good documentation of what I called the hippie movement, even though I had a lot of issues with that movement, mainly involving drugs and sex. I mean, I thought it was very exploitive of women, but that's my standpoint. And so when punk, I knew there was going to be another movement in 10 years because it's just math, or history, And then when punk started, barely began to play like, I think Mark Mothersbaugh here he was one of the progenitors of punk as early as maybe 74, really early, right? in Ohio. No, you got resources to make those great movies. Those are really groundbreaking movies before MTV. I mean, those movies are amazingly imaginative, and they really hold up, like now. Yeah. And anyway, so, I'm happy to say that I didn't have any money when I started Search and Destroy. Ferlinghetti and Ginsberg did give me $100 each. Couldn't have done it without that. Seed money, they call it. And so the first issue was very painful. I did it by myself, almost all of it on my kitchen floor. I made the terrible collage that's in it. Maybe it's not so terrible, but you can judge for yourself. And then in time for issue number 2, DeVoe came to town. I thought they were one of the most deepest intellectually, talk about otherness or just being on, I don't know, some kind of visionary of alternative ways to live and clothe yourself and do music. I mean, you didn't have to look like a rock star. No slight there. But I mean, it used to be people who are rock stars were like male models or female models or something. But yes, thank you. And plus the uniform idea, I loved that. And I loved the fact that the uniforms are really cheap. They weren't expensive, no designer bullshit. Although I have nothing against designer or anything. The reason why is because in the early punk movement, it was a paradise then. Before you had, I don't know, what do you call upper class thrift stores? Vintage, maybe. You could literally buy designer dresses in San Francisco, a naive place, and you could buy them for like $0.25, and then you could tear them up and safety pin them back together and paint them with graffiti or little whatever symbols. And I don't think you can do that. I'm sure you can't do that. Like Chanel dresses or something. Anyway, I'm a fan of fashion. I was really kind of sad when Mary Quant just died, because age is my favorite period of history, style-wise, is 1965 to 6. What do you call the? Boy, I really wanted to go to London then, but I tried to read all I could about it. I got a copy of Quant by Quant. If you haven't read that, it's really kind of almost a feminist classic, although there are probably people who disagree with me. But I mean, Mary Quant was both a visionary visually and conceptually, and she was also a really good brander of herself, which not every person is. Oh, that's right. DeVoe was really good at branding. And we didn't know the name then. That word did not exist for us. How naive. And wait, where am I going with all this?
I have a follow. Yeah. Did you see a parallel between the punks and the Beats? Were there similarities?
Well, what I liked is that one of the things I really didn't like about the hippie movement was, of course, drugs. Because I'm so square, forget it. That's not my world. And then I hated all these predator males around. It was bad. But I could write my memoir, but I just hated a lot of things about the hippie movement. And but the punk movement didn't seem, in San Francisco at least, well, there were a lot more gays than women in our early punk movement, where it took 2 years to build up 200 so-called hardcore punks in San Francisco. 2 years. And I didn't see the macho thing happening. Like in that hippie scene, there would be these guys that would brag about how many girls they had blank. But that I couldn't think of anyone doing that in my punk movement, at least, and I like that. I mean, and like I said, there are more women and gays in our early punk movement. And the movement was so small. San Francisco was like tiny compared to the vast universe of LA, that you could know everyone practically because we all went to the same club, only one club, the Mambuhai, and you could literally meet almost everybody in the room, because if you left the room, you'd be subjected to people yelling names at you from cars and all kinds of hostile looks if you went into a restaurant, if you even could afford to go in a restaurant, and just all kinds of, disapproval. So, so anyway, in Search and Destroy, you probably know this, but I was a big fan of Claude Lévi-Strauss, the French anthropologist. I had all his books, and I read other anthropologists like I really like Mary Douglas, British, and there are more. Ruth Benedict. I don't want to go there, but I wouldn't. You could do worse than read anthropology books, or at least take a glance at them in a library for free. And that's another thing. I wouldn't be here without the free library system, because I grew up in libraries. I grew up actually not that, from 7 to 18, I guess. I lived in Riverside County, 2 hours away from here, but it got to be 115 degrees in the summer, and we were super poor. My mom was on welfare, but I discovered in my small town there were 3 libraries, and the best one, the college library, had great air conditioning. No one was ever in there hardly, and they didn't care if this kid hung out and just tried to look at every book in the library. So I recommend you do that too. I mean, you could do worse than even pick up books you don't think you're interested in at all and just open it at random, hoping you'll find something that, somehow awakens something inside you, which is what we're here for. You're here really not for me. You're here for yourselves, because you need to. I say, I loved about punk that it was way more upfront about, discover and develop all the creativity that's inside you, not just music, but visual, drawing, collages, even so-called bad poetry. But who's to say if it's bad or not? And if you write poetry and you have friends, you want to get rid of anyone who tells you your poetry's bad. You need all the support you can get. Actually, to do anything creative, only have friends that you can either collaborate with or who support you, but none of this supercilious intellectual analysis of what you do or critique. I mean, academia has its place, but not in my living room.
And Vale, just thinking about Search and Destroy and the anthropological stance, or the fact that you were coming from this place that was about doing these much deeper interviews and finding as you said it, the real kind of source thinkers. Tell us other ways that, Search and Destroy, but also all of your publications had that as a kind of intention. And you do believe there are 1,000 source thinkers on the planet, and that's it.
Yeah, that was an idea. I must have ripped it off from someone. I don't want to take credit for any original thinking of any kind, but I am a fan of channeling, which means that I'll say stuff and think I invented it, but really, I just rephrased someone else, maybe even someone I heard on the street saying a sentence or two. I don't know. I'm actually the two, besides everything I published, I recommend you check out everything having to do with surrealism and situationism, and of course Dada before then. And I love the symbolists from 1870 or so. I just love their artwork. I like a lot of stuff that you might not think is punk, but I do. I mean, I think it's in the lineage of do-it-yourself and developing all the talents inside you, not just one. And so, I think one of my aphorisms besides do-it-yourself is, the second one I came up with is anyone can do it. That's really important because you just got to empower yourself and not think, I'm not as good as who? Who can I think of? Andy Warhol? No, he ripped off a lot of people. And he's one of my mentors, too.
Yeah, you love Warhol, don't you?
Oh, yeah. I hitchhiked to New York in the 60s to see his first show. It wasn't even in a real gallery, as my memory. It was nothing but the disaster series. The airplane stuck in the ground, the car crashes with dead bodies in the cars, and the electric chair, of course. I mean, who would think electric chair would be high art? But it's probably worth $1 million now in that crazy art world out there.
You were talking about how punk, there's a lineage of punk that goes all the way back to the symbolists or whatever.
Yeah.
And speaking to the movement that now we defined as the punk movement, would you consider it, the punk movement, a success or a failure, and why?
Oh, neither one. I don't think that's the right way to judge. I just think it's a bunch of individuals, and then you ask yourself, well, what did they do? Even if you just write one really great song and the rest are not so good, it's still, most people can't even do that. I think it's hard to write one song, that has the singable lyrics or something. So, and the clothes, God, the clothes. Everyone, punk still has a huge impact on fashion. Why do you think there's 1 million teenage girls or millions walking around with these short motorcycle jackets, which they bought at H&M? That's definitely punk. Maybe they know it and maybe they don't, but they probably know it. Well, you never know. People know more than you give them credit for. That's what I've always thought.
Something I love about you, and maybe it is, maybe again it's not even you saying it. I think it's actually Buckminster Fuller. Yeah. But this idea that we're not nouns, we're verbs.
Oh yeah.
And I think particularly today, really thinking of ourselves as being, these evolutionary beings, and as soon as you've done something, instead of holding on to that, you move on and you do something else. How do you stay vital, both in yourself, but also with all of the work that you're continuing to make? And by the way, if it's hard to write one good song, you've written hundreds?
No, come on.
Yeah, you're going to play some.
None of them are any good, but anyway, you just always try and do the best you can, and it's usually pretty fast songwriting. I find if you labor over it for years, maybe take a break. Yeah, that's another thing I learned over the years. To survive, I have to take naps and not feel guilty. And oddly enough, during those naps, you often think of creative ideas, or you solve an aesthetic problem that maybe you didn't think you had. You get all kinds of lateral thinking insights, or naps are great. And dreams, of course. I met this girl who, she did a zine recently, and I thought it had a great title. It's called Life Between Dreams. I don't know, I liked it. So yeah, dreams are very important. The most important thing of all is keeping a journal. even if you don't want to do it, try and do it every night, just to sum up the day. And, if you met someone you hated, write it down, please. And also try to avoid them in the future. But you can never show this journal to anyone. That's ironclad. Otherwise, you'll start censoring yourself, and you'll repress yourself. It just got to be the real truth. I mean, the journal is your best friend almost. And I like it to be pen. I like it to be pen and paper, like little notebooks. Is my favorite, tiny notebooks.
You also talk about limiting cell phone use, right? First hour, like no cell phones, no anything.
Yeah, but boy, is that a hard one to do, because like every other idiot, I've become an iPhone addict, and I read about how incredibly economically powerful TikTok had become, but of course I thought myself too above it to ever go there. But then I didn't know that the one social media I do is like Instagram, my Vale_research account, I depend on that just to tell people who I hope like me that, hey, I'm going to be in LA April 16th, Sunday, and please attend. Instagram is very valuable for me. It goes over to Facebook too, but I'm only on Instagram. But the point is that I think only a month or two ago, Instagram started, somehow I got these things called Reels, and they're like TikTok 15-second movies. Those are so addicting. That's scary. I've seen all these animals slaughter each other. I've seen all kinds of car crashes and, plane crash. Every horrible thing that could happen to you is there. Sheesh. Sorry if anyone loves TikTok.
I don't get those reels. I don't know what you're looking at.
It's on Instagram, I swear. I didn't put them there.
Would you say that there's a common ethos between the subjects that you've chosen to publish and feature in your magazines and books? Is there something in common with everyone, or how do you make your decisions?
Well, they're all about one thing: trying to inspire everyone to be more creative in some way. You might not think you could do a zine, but I think everyone in the room should do at least one zine before you die. That you have 100% control over. And again, you need a few friends to help you always in life, but just make sure I put it in that goals of life sheet, which I hope everyone has. What was it like? Try to, I don't know, what did I say? Something about try to collaborate with the most rebellious,
genius,
and funniest people you can. All three are important. Humor is very important. In fact, that's so important in any relationship. I think humor is number one before any, almost at least to me. And hey, some people can relate to what I say.
Thinking about those goals, and I think they're scattered about the tables, and they really are. Oh, Marianne's got a bunch. They really are incredible insights into Vale, but just philosophical nuggets. Are they ever evolving for you, or are those fixed? Have you set those goals?
Well, I'm kind of after what I call, believe it or not, that sheet is full of what I call causative principles. Principles like DNA are like DNA. It's the principles, the underlying causative principles you want to discover in any situation you're in. Who did that first? Or just, it doesn't hurt you to interrogate yourself. Where did this come from? What are the causative DNA principles? It's fun, too, maybe.
Oh yeah, you kind of when we introduced you, I talked about how Industrial Culture Handbook blew my mind wide open, and so many of the subjects and personalities that you've covered tend to be like quite extreme individualists, and.
Well, they're more fun often.
Yeah, I was going to say, what's your attraction to like such extreme characters?
I didn't think I looked at life that way. These are just people I happened to meet by chance, the goddess of chance or whatever it is, but it turned out when I did first of all, you start with an archetype or a mission statement or whatever. I didn't have that word, by the way, until recently, but. You kind of get the picture, like you should have a table of contents or you should have a philosophy behind every project. And if you don't have one, well, invent one. But, well, see, I guess I'm kind of a rebel because I liked, when punk happened, what I liked was that people were just daring to do things that had never been done before, I thought, or they dared to put noise in their recordings, or even samples of things they got off the news, like a serial killer case or whatever, and they, I liked the fact that you didn't have to be euphonious. You could make noise and be abrasive. And you could give people, the highest thing you could do is give people new thoughts. And speaking of Industrial Culture Handbook, one thing annoyed me about that book, and that's that I didn't put Devo in. And the reason I didn't, because see, Mark here, on this first show that I saw, he was playing this guitar with, I don't know, a bunch of wires and synth boxes on it. I don't understand the technology. But he was doing that live. And I'd never seen that before. I said, wow. And anyway, it seemed like there are a number of risks being taken in a live show that I had never even thought of, wondering, wow, And so, but I didn't put them in industrial because guess what? Who knew? They just became world famous so fast. I didn't dare put them in. I mean, they already had their own audience thanks to Warner Brothers or whoever spends millions of dollars promoting things. I hope they spent it on them. And so early Devo was very, I think, at best industrial. But, it would have been uncool to put Devo in because they were too popular.
And I think, something, and maybe everyone who knows you, something I think is really remarkable is like in this culture where everyone's really trying to be cool and poker-faced and not show any emotions, you're always smiling. And tell us a bit about that. Like, isn't there an origin story for that?
Oh, yeah. I was raised in 4 foster homes before I was 7. And I think the way I survived it was by smiling. I remember adults saying, Vale has such a sunny disposition. And I just thought, well, I fooled them. But I grew up with this huge notebook, and I didn't have friends, really, so I did a ton of drawing. But then even at the age of 4, I somehow learned how to read, and I discovered used bookstores. And I remember for 15 cents each, I think way back in Los Angeles when I was living in one of the foster homes, I found 2 volumes of the Book of Knowledge, 15 cents each. And I don't know if, and a medical textbook. Oh yeah, that was a quarter. And I don't think a kid my age should have been allowed to see that medical textbook. I mean, I swear, back in those days, it had like a black and white close-up of the genitalia of a hermaphrodite. I mean, born that way, like, wow, okay. So I kind of grew up knowing that weird stuff was normal. I mean, I don't know. It just seemed normal to me. It's in a medical textbook. Oh, God. I forgot. Those color illustrations of venereal disease, close-up. And then the books of knowledge also had, gave you ideas like, once upon a time there were the Roman games, and they'd throw Christians to the lions. and you kind of see some kind of okay illustrations of that, but
it's all making sense now.
Yeah, it's logical, really.
You mentioned that you use Instagram and it's how you connect with people and all of that.
For the last 4 years.
Something that we've spoken about before, I don't know if you remember last time that we met in San Francisco, was this idea of that it would be the theory, maybe it's only my theory, but that it's kind of impossible to have an underground today. Because everything is so public so quickly that
but I think
the formula for the underground.
My answer to that is that, look, you make your own world. I don't think anyone should have more than 10 friends. And if those 10 friends and you are your own underground, and you share all the books, but they got to be curious people. They got to be smart. I mean, they got to be looking for weird books like I do, or weird movies, or whatever is out there. I mean, my daughter turned me on to something I would never in a million years have found only a month ago, and it's called White Lotus. I don't know have you all seen it? That was, I actually found that kind of shocking, me, and what I think my favorite parts were when the young people were arguing with older adults who considered themselves hip. I mean, that I love that girl who brought her POC girlfriend with her on the expensive trip to Hawaii or wherever. I just love that, and all the arguments that went back and forth. And there's shocking stuff in there. I mean, one poor boy got to see his father naked underwater. To me, is that okay for primetime TV? Well, there is no more primetime TV, I guess. Pardon? I don't know, because I get everything I view is usually pirated for me by an unknown friend. I liked season 1 of White Lotus more than season 2. I hated the ending because I thought that cool older woman could have just climbed down the damn ladder. Why did she throw herself into this? Anyway, never mind. So that's about as hip as I get. White Lotus.
But I think, so you said shocking a few times, and something I find interesting as well is when you're talking about the authentic underground, you actually say it's not about spectacle, violence, some of those things that it became more about in later years.
It's about creativity.
Yeah.
I mean, that's, and of course, to be really creative, you have to be a little bit rebellious, I hope, and a little bit not, a middle-class role model. But, friends are where you find them. You can be lucky and find friends who actually help you be more creative. And every time you see them, they leave and you actually have some new ideas, or at least one new idea, or a new word for your vocabulary or something. God, that was a deadly dull statement.
I guess so.
No, everyone's silent.
Why? You mentioned that you were shocked by White Lotus, but I'm constantly surprised by how little truly shocking content is created these days. I feel like the culture has been very much homogenized, and things that used to be published, like the things that you put out in research and your contemporaries in that field, I don't see it as much anymore. And I'm wondering if you've ever thought about that and why that is, that there's not as much interest in the truly bizarre as maybe there was at a different time in history.
Well, I think there's stuff I don't even know out there that is bizarre. I mean, like little folk museums in Hungary or something. I mean, things that I just randomly happen to find usually on the internet, often through Instagram. And so, but again, Instagram for me is so addicting, I gotta really watch that.
So you're saying that you still think it exists, you just have to search for it.
You've always had to search for it. That's why my zines back there, which I wish you'd look at, I have 4 of them called Search for Weird. Well, that wasn't just a casual phrase. It's not a bad way to live, maybe. I don't know if you get rich, though.
Well, you got to search for it, or you got to create it, really, is what you're saying.
It doesn't hurt.
Yeah. You
feel better. Every time you create something, I guarantee you feel better. As long as they're not around some naysayer or analytic type.
Hear, hear.
Yeah. Well, I think we were going to also share some more of your goals before we segue into the performance.
Oh, God. Performance with a small P, I warn you.
And did you pick out any of your cat haikus?
I didn't get around to it, but there's a thing. I'm an editor, right? But I guarantee you, everyone needs an editor, including me, the so-called editor. No matter who you are, you need a trusted editor, preferably living in the same house. But so I thought, gee, she knows my best cat haiku more than I do. How can I judge?
Okay.
But you should pick out
Maybe
some.
I do have a book of your the quotes in the green room that has a number of them. I don't know if someone can kindly retrieve that, or
maybe there's one on the table. I don't know.
Okay. Yeah, because I feel there are a lot of cat haikus in there. I just think people should enjoy your cat haikus. Yeah. One clap.
Well, here comes a copy of something brought by Marion Wallace.
And was this, I know, William Burroughs was a big fan of cats.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
Okay, wonderful.
Hey, these are available for sale, maybe the last copies. This is quotes by V. Vale, and this is an all-color zine, very expensive to make, called Abby the Cat, a Purr zine, P-U-R-R. And that's where the cat haiku are in the last few pages. I mean, you could pick out some. Hopefully, you'll recognize one of your favorites.
Don't you want to read it, right?
I'm a bad judge of my own work. Everyone is.
Just read one.
Okay. Cat still hates collar. Remember what a haiku is? It's 17 syllables. It's like 5, and 7. Some variant of that. Okay. Cat still hates collar. Hid under the bed all day. Just came out for food. Okay. Why do I like you? Because you feed me? Perhaps. But You'll never know. Anyway, there's many more in here. Please take them off my hands so I don't have to pack them in my luggage going home.
Should we read off some of the goals?
Yeah, definitely.
Beatie and I chose a few.
Oh,
10
okay.
of them, right?
Okay.
That we were going to read off, and then maybe you could just grab a couple and talk about them.
Sure, if I can.
Okay. So, our first favorite one: no separation between art and life.
Well, how? Everyone doesn't seem to know that they were put on this earth to create, no matter who you are. Even with the book of drawings that are kids' drawings. I mean, a lot of people make drawings when they're kids, and for some reason they quit. I don't know why, but that's bad. And so, again, one of the aphorisms is develop all your talents and create in as many media as possible. And then my daughter, of course, always a severe critic, immediately said, but if you do that, you won't get really good at anything. And I think you can actually do both. I think it's actually possible for at least a period of time, you know.
Here's another one. Autonomy. You must have 100% control. Don't listen to any advice, and try to avoid money partners.
Yeah, that's been the biggest mistakes of my life involved when someone offered me money, really, and I took it. Big mistake. Because then they want to, I don't know, the next step for them is to think they did all the research books. I don't know how that happens, but, that happens. And no, try and get gifts maybe like I got from Ferlinghetti or Ginsberg, but don't partner with someone which maybe, I guess you shouldn't have a contract at all, but if you did, I mean, it's bad if they own 40% or 20% or something. That's my experience. So I say if you can do without money partners, please try and persevere.
Okay, another one. Stay insecure. It drives you to continually do better and better yourself.
Oh, hell yeah. I'm totally insecure all the time. But, I lack confidence. But maybe too much, maybe overconfidence is your enemy in a way. And also, if you're more modest, if I can dare use that word, if you're more modest about what you do, maybe that spurs you on to get better at what you do. Like, just a little more tech, please. Tech is my downfall. I wasn't born with an engineering brain. I'm sure of that. But if you were, you're lucky. I don't put down any coders out there or people who naturally are given to math or sciences. They just have a different brain than I have. You got to work with what you got. You do the best you have with what you got.
Speaking of, this is a perfect follow-up. Seize opportunity, the chance encounter, serendipity, your desires magnetize the universe.
Oh, hell yes. Oh, boy. That's happened a few times in life. But I don't know if you keep journals, maybe you will discover, like me, that weird coincidences happen in your life. I'll give you an example. It's the bad example. Like there was a young man from France about 7 feet tall who I let live in my apartment during the punk days. But he was a nice guy, but he barely spoke English. And then, I didn't get money to travel till years later. I went to Paris, which my number one favorite destination I've always wanted to go to. And And I went to a record store, and there he was. I mean, what are the odds of that? And then, I kind of met Kenneth Anger a long time ago, and on my first trip to New York, there he was on the street corner. Like, remember me from City Lights? Anyway, things like that seem to happen more than rational explanation. And so, but yeah, and also I really think you should try to be as nice to everyone as you possibly can. I mean, just try to be nice to the people. What do you have to lose? I mean, it makes the world more fun. And I mean, we all want as many allies, I suppose, as possible. Because why not? I mean, we are a big alliance of wannabe creatives in this room, at least. And people might meet someone new in this room that could change their life or become a friend. I mean, I don't know, but it'd be nice if it happened.
Okay, so next one. Heed your first intuition about people, proposals. Protect yourself.
Oh, hell yes. I think I might have said in there that your intuition, which is like a physical thing, it's not just intellectual. Your intuition, like when you meet someone for the first time or get given a proposal, your body will tell you. It's not intellectual. And when I haven't heeded that in my life, I a few times it was very bad for me. Let's put it that way. Not everyone you meet is your ally and friend, I'm sorry to say.
Which sort of contradicts the last thing you said.
Hey, contradiction is the foundation of existence.
Absolutely.
Maybe the last one?
Yeah.
Okay. An idea: change the world through design. Don't try to change humans. Change the environment.
Oh yeah, I ripped that off Bucky Fuller. I mean, he's like a genius engineer, and it's too bad more of his ideas weren't implemented, like the Dymaxion car that I loved. I got this enter it at some weird fair in Vancouver years ago. The Dymaxion car, it's super huge capacity, very great mileage, and could park in a space almost the length of the parking spot because of the design of the wheels. And anyway, and more. There's a lot more to that. And it's too bad Bucky didn't get to build a Fuller City or something. Bucky Fuller City.
I'd go there. Okay, and then, very last one, Vale, and then I think we're going to have a performance, right?
Oh, or whatever.
Let's take the cell phones.
Ooh.
Yeah, so first hour, silence. No emails, phones, internet, write, plan.
Oh, definitely. Well, if you can do that, this morning I would have been screwed if I took that because, I think something warned me, check your cell phone as soon as you wake up at 6 in the morning or whatever. And sure enough, I was so shocked. I got notice, your plane flight today has been canceled. Like, what? And we're giving you a flight tomorrow. Well, tomorrow I don't think would have worked for this whole room, maybe. Yeah, and so I had to violate that. But if you can, I'm a fan of paper notebooks and pens or pencils. Not only can you draw on them, so try and get get a notebook without lines in it, or whatever, or use a grid maybe. But it's nice if you can both write and draw, incorporate little drawings, or things like the research logo, which I think I drew before that happened. And I was just ripping off Life magazine for a logo. Oh yeah, if you really love something, maybe imitate it. Or my famous one that might not be true is, in Japanese, the word for to learn is the same as the word for to copy. Is there any Japanese in the house to counter that?
No. All right, I think we're done. Thank you, Vale.
Yeah, Vale.
Give these two the credit. Give them the credit, not me.
Not totally done. Marianne's going to come up. Marianne Wallace, Vale's better half.
Professional here.
We are not professionals. Let that be known.
Me. Okay. So first we'll do dreaming.
Yeah, let's do
I'm dreaming.
If only.
No, really? Is that what you want to do first?
Well, I don't know.
Let's do the other one first.
Really? I don't remember the intro to that. Maybe it doesn't need one.
I'm dreaming.
I think that's it.
Yeah.
Right.
Long. This is the intro. You need an intro. Right here. Okay, here we go. I'm dreaming I'm somewhere far away, where oceans and rivers are here to stay, with mountains and forests and birds galore, and beaches and cities where no one's bored, where artists and singers all sing their dreams, and no one gets caught in a rich man's schemes, where women and children are equally blessed, with plenty to eat and plenty of rest. Will the world stop being insane? Will the rich start taking the blame? Will religion cease their game? Let Mother Nature take over. Will language be reinvented? Can the world stay so demented? We could easily redo the planet if everyone worked together. I'm dreaming, fall close at hand. We're eating and drinking are truly grand, and beauty is found in your neighborhood, and all the pleasures that do you good, all the songs you've ever sung, all the poems you've read and loved, all your clothes that make you proud, all the lies groove. Well, maybe it's not so bad. There's plenty out there to make you glad. A mango, cherries, or a peach. All the fruit that's within your reach. All the movies with all their thunder. All the books that make you wonder. All the music that can thrill your life. All the art that conquers strife. When will words be reimagined? When will new worlds be imagined? Make your life a daily pageant. Let nature take over. Language must be reinvented. It's why the world's so demented. We could easily redo the planet if everyone got together. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Incredibly naive lyrics.
By Vale, of course. This one was Beatie's
Yeah,
pick.
this is Beatie's pick. But I have to barely remember it.
Uh-oh.
Oh, no,
It
I
has
got it, I got it, I
like
got
a
it.
bunch of intro. Remember? If only we could never age and live forever too, and all our friends would never change, stay young and beautiful, and we could roam without a care, and all the animals too. And travel, dine like Anthony Bourdain from France to Timbuktu. It's time to laugh at any strife, to realize our schemes. It's time to do whatever we want and Make your dreams come true. Make your dreams come true. Thank you. Are you going to play anymore? That's all we have prepared for you today. I'm sorry. We're on Bandcamp, by the way. Research pubs. So check it out. Thanks. Thank you. Okay, we did it.
Hey, we made it through it. So anyway,
Thank you so much. Money Mark?
please look at my book table.
Money Mark? Are you able to play any more? Okay, amazing. Thank you guys so much. Thank you.